Everybody's interested in their IQ, and as a society, we often think that IQ is the pillar of intelligence. But is that actually really true? And what is IQ all about? Well, on this week's episode of GetPsyched, we're going to be taking a look at the psychology of IQ, and I'm going to go through a couple of IQ tests that I conducted online to see a little bit more about the validity and reliability of IQ tests, so make sure to stay tuned. What's up guys, welcome to another week's episode of GetPsyched, and like I said, this week we're going to be taking a look at IQ, we're going to be taking a look a little bit at the psychology of IQ and the history of it, and we're also going to take a look at me conducting a couple of IQ tests. We're going to see what my IQ score is, and we're going to understand a little bit more about the reliability and validity of IQ tests. Now I actually conducted 2 IQ tests just the other day, I recorded them for this video, and I'm going to put the links down in the description for you to be able to take them as well. They're just some free online resources, some free online IQ tests, but it's actually really interesting going through some of the questions and actually seeing what the end result is and the end score on both of them, and we can start to understand a little bit more about the reliability of these tests and if they're actually valid. So the first question that we have to ask is, what is IQ? Well, it stands for intelligence It stands for intelligence. Hold on, I'm not really sure how to say that. It stands for intelligence quotient. I believe that's how it's pronounced. People could correct me in the comments down below, but it stands for intelligence something. And IQ is fundamentally the makeup of a number of different factors that give us a construction of somebody's general intelligence. And that's really what IQ tests are all about. They try and establish somebody's general level of intelligence. So before we go through me conducting some of these IQ tests, I thought it'd be interesting to look at the history of IQ and where this actually all started. Well, throughout history, people have tried to rate other people's intelligence. However, Francis Galton was the first to actually try and construct a measure to establish somebody's intelligence levels. And in large, he was a great believer in the fact that intelligence was fundamentally inherited. This was like a genetic thing. So you were really only as intelligent as your parents, and that genetic factor was the main contributing factor to you being intelligent or not. However, he did also have a couple of other theories that attributed to being able to measure somebody's intelligence, things like head size, for example. Also things like grip strength and muscle reflexology. So there was a very physiological element to his ability or his desire and attempt to actually measure somebody's IQ. However, in 1882, he actually put a number of those physiological measures of IQ to the test in some theories and experimental designs. Now, he found no correlation between things like head size, grip strength, muscle reflexology, and a connection to that and IQ. And after that, he very much gave up the ghost in trying to establish an understanding of where somebody's intelligence really comes from. Alfred Binet in 1905 had a little bit more luck though. He constructed a test that looked at somebody's verbal abilities in order to be able to measure their intelligence levels. Now, initially this test was primarily constructed in order to assess children's mental age, so children that had learning difficulties, like profound learning difficulties. He established this test in order to try and actually measure their mental age as well as he could. Binet started to appreciate that intelligence was multifaceted, and he understood this pretty early on in his studies. He understood that there were numerous factors attributed to how intelligent somebody was. And although IQ tests had started to come into the fold a little bit more, Binet started to critique the quantitative measure of actually assessing somebody's intelligence levels, and he started to value a little bit more about the qualitative way in which we can assess somebody's intelligence levels. Now, I found this quite interesting because today, even in 2019, we still associate IQ testing with that psychometric quantitative basis of you kind of answering a couple of questions or looking at different patterns or designs. Actually, some of the IQ tests I'm going to be running in just a couple of minutes. But in 1905, people were still arguing against this quantitative nature of IQ testing. So I wonder today how much we actually overlook this qualitative nature of IQ testing. How much information can we gain solely from psychometrics? Are we missing the whole picture when we're not interviewing people, we're not doing a qualitative nature of study to actually assess somebody's intelligence? Are we missing some of the bigger picture? If the difference in the dichotomy between quantitative and qualitative is new to you, then make sure to check out a video I did a couple of months ago. You'll find it on the video link in GetPsyched. I'll put it down in the description as well, actually. And I did a video on quantitative versus qualitative. So if you want more information on that, then make sure to check that out. So what about actually measuring IQ? So we've looked at a little bit about what IQ is. We've looked at the history of IQ. And now, what about IQ tests? What about their construction and their usage in history? There are so many IQ tests available out there, some that you pay thousands of pounds for just to take, and others that you can take online. There's a lot of free resources out there, and there's so many different ways in which somebody actually measures your IQ in these forms and that kind of basis. They've been used for decades to assess somebody's intelligence levels and the appropriateness of that individual conducting a certain assignment or a certain task. In the build-up to World War I, the USA actually conducted a mass survey of the intelligence of some of the men that they were going out to war. A total of 1.75 million soldiers were given IQ tests. They were given the same IQ test actually. So that was the kind of first mass usage of IQ tests, and it was in order to assess the appropriateness of those individuals actually going into war. The US government and the US military wanted to know more about these soldiers' intelligence levels in order to see how well they would be able to perform in battle. However, there's a huge grey area with this, and although this was the first mass IQ testing of a population really in recorded history, and although this very much helped psychology come into the mainstream and come into public recognition after huge public support for these IQ tests and huge governmental support, there were a number of issues with this process of IQ testing for these US soldiers in World War I. The reliability and the validity of these IQ tests came under huge scrutiny years later. Some even argued that the tests were skewed and the outcomes and the outputs were manipulated in order to conform with racial biases and prejudices that were very, very prominent in the USA at that time. We therefore have to really start thinking about the reliability and the validity of psychometrics that actually measure IQ. Now, with that being said, I thought it would be really interesting for me to actually conduct some IQ tests, and these are free IQ tests that you can find online. I put the description to the 2 tests that I did in the description down below. Now, you'll be able to conduct those IQ tests as well. But what I want to do is I want to take you to some of the recordings I did of the IQ test. We're going to go through some of the questions that I did in those tests and my actual output. We're going to compare the 2 results, and then we're going to think a little bit more about the reliability and the validity of these tests and whether or not we can really trust IQ tests. So here we go.
Okay, so here is the kind of first IQ test that I found. By the way, you can find all these online. I thought what would be quite good is that maybe I run through some of the highlights of certain IQ tests that I do, and you can critique how terrible my IQ is perhaps. So here's the first one. It's free-iqtest.net, and the first thing it does is it asks me to enter my birthday, so I'll do that. I don't have an issue with disclosing that really. Okay, so start the test. Oh man, already I'm struggling with this. Right, okay, so least like, okay. See this timer up here, that makes me nervous. Okay, I think I'm adding these two, so this is where you realize my dyslexia. Oh my life! Who told me there was going to be so much maths in IQ tests? Oh my life! I can't understand this. I don't know. That's really annoying me. Okay, that seems a little bit easier, but you never know. Flipping out, this is already getting pretty tough. Why is this so difficult? Why do I feel so ridiculous? 5, surely. This makes me think it looked... what is this? I'm going to say a country. That's really hard. Struggle with those ones as well, as you can probably tell. I'm finding this really hard, I'm not going to lie. I think 20... It's in the 20s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 in there all total. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. It has to be 25. Thank goodness that's over. Oh, it's not over. So an IQ of 134, that seems really, really generous. So IQ of 134, right, let's be honest with this. This is one test, and I do think that they're kind of keen to get high results so that you maybe share them. So I'm always skeptical of these things. So between 130 and 144, it says gifted. Okay, so in the top 2.3%. I don't think that's... I really struggled with that whole test, so I don't really know if that's fair. And I'm also, as a psychologist, thinking a little bit critically and thinking, if I got a super low mark, then I'm not going to really share it with my mates, am I? If I got a really high one, I'm going to maybe share it more likely, and they're going to get more traffic to their website. So there's maybe something to be said about that. However, I'll take 134. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to take that, because I was close to thinking I'd have the same IQ as a golden retriever there for a second. Some of those questions, I don't know if you were following along. I'm going to put all the links to the IQ test that I use in the description of the video and of the podcast here, so you can maybe check it out, see what you get. But I found that really hard. I found that really, really difficult. Okay, so I'm going to do another one. The previous one, 134, IQ of 134, like I said, I think is generous. I'm interested to see if I get similar results on different IQ tests. So we're looking all into the psychology of IQ tests here. We're thinking a lot about the validity, the reliability of these things with any kind of psychometric. If you can consider an IQ test a psychometric, we need to be thinking about validity and reliability. Okay, those are the two key things that we need to be thinking about. So I want to see about how reliable and valid these tests maybe are, and maybe we're going to get a better understanding of that by doing some different tests. So I did one previously there. I'm now on brainmetrics.com. This is another free IQ test. I'll put again the link down in the show notes, or I'll put it in the description. Okay, so let's go. See, these number ones never work well for me. Never work well for me. Gosh, this is so hard. See, I really struggle with these number ones. I don't think IQ is all about the sequence of numbers that you can put together. Or maybe that's not what this is. Maybe this is just trying to figure stuff out. Either way, I find this so hard. I think I'm multiplying something here, so I believe that's 6. See, these are the ones as well that cause so much confusion because you're trying to figure everything out in your head. So, okay, so I'm a male. If Albert's son is my son's father, so Albert has a son. If Albert's son is my son's father, oh my life, right, okay, so hold on. Albert's the father. Flipping it, that was hard. So if Snoopy, Droopy, Snoopy, Droppy, Croppy means mission dangerously executed, surely the word Snoopy means mission. Okay, it must mean. No, it doesn't. No, that's not right. Because Trappy means mission as well. I don't think that's worded well. What does that mean? Please find the figure continuing the series. See, this is where, these are the things, so the numerical stuff in IQ tests seem to be pretty challenging for me, but then the kind of figurative stuff seems to get a little bit more simple or more straightforward, and then we get to stuff like this. Wow, right, okay, I don't feel as good about that one as I did. Okay, so here we go, right? So your IQ now is 97. Here's what's interesting about this, right? So the first IQ test was 134. I got 134 in the first one. I then got 97 on this one. So if you remember from the first IQ score, that put me in the top 2 percentile on Earth's population or something like that. This time around though, I get something very different. Okay, so 97, if we look here, between 90 and 109, so that's where I am, it says, when you have an intelligence of 90 to 109, it means that you have an intelligence of normal or average people. Normal thinking means that you're less intelligent and generally have a slower thinking. So people who cannot get to the solution or slower in thinking will mean that they have normal intelligence, right? Okay. So basically what this is saying is that I'm kind of the kind of average stuff. Whereas the other one said I was really high up. Now, I'm not saying I believe either one of these necessarily. I think what the point here is that we're starting to see how inconsistent some of these IQ scores can be. So to go from a super high IQ score to a reasonably low one shows you just about, what you're actually, what we're looking at here. What is it we're actually measuring? Are we questioning really what is IQ? How do we know? Is it based on, because I find that second one there much harder, I think, than the first one, and I found the first one pretty tough as well, but I think I managed to kind of structure an understanding of what it was asking me. Is IQ just basically an understanding of the questions that you're being asked? We're going to talk more about this in this video. We're going to pan to the kind of normal GetPsyched screening. Hopefully these kind of tests have been pretty good for you to understand a little bit more about IQ. You can check them out as well. Like I said, you'll get the links to the description at the bottom of my notes.
Okay, so maybe that gave you a little bit more of an understanding about the reliability and the validity of IQ tests. As you could tell, those two results, 134 and 97, are pretty far apart. I'm not going to lie, when I got that first test and I got 134, I was pretty chuffed. I know I said a little bit more about, I'm scrutinizing those results a little bit. I'm not sure how much I trust them. To then get 97 in the next test was a bit demoralizing. But I think what it does is it gives us a little bit of an understanding that we have to be critical of these tests, So often we see IQ tests and we think, gosh, that's just going to measure IQ, that's going to be great, it's going to tell me how intelligent I am. But how much can we actually trust them? Like I said so many times in this video already, we need to be thinking about reliability and validity. These are the two primary concepts when we're thinking of psychometrics. And also there's something to be said about it being a free resource online. I'm fully aware of that. It might be different if I had spent hundreds or thousands of pounds on an IQ test and sat that. Maybe I'd get a more robust answer. But what I think the point shows here is that we need to be critical of these things. We need to be, psychologists in training or qualified psychologists, or even if you're just interested in psychology, one of the key things in psychology is to be critical, to cast that critical eye over what we're actually evaluating. There's a lot of home truths and there's a lot of myths about IQ. One of the things that we can probably all agree on though is that IQ is very, very complex. And I'm not going to lie, I have a bit of a bugbear with IQ. And I have a bit of a bugbear with IQ tests as well. We put IQ up on this pedestal as the overall arching rate and measure of intelligence because we think if we got a high IQ score then that means we're smart. But how much does IQ measure things like emotional intelligence, creativity, artistic ability, musical ability, interpersonal relationships? Our ability to express empathy, our ability to connect with other people from different cultures. All of these things that require true intelligence. That's, some people don't really think that requires intelligence, and often we live in a society, and I blame society in large for this, that, intelligence means the biggest number that you can multiply and divide, or the fact that you can write a book. Is that really intelligence? Yes, in part it's got something to do with intelligence, but I think IQ and IQ tests often miss a lot of the factors that I've just explained there. However, I'll leave that up for you guys to think a little bit about, and if you've got an opinion, make sure to comment on the video below, make sure to share the video with your friends, maybe they think something different to me about IQ. I would love to engage with you guys a little bit more and understand your opinions on IQ. I'd also love to know about the scores that you got in the IQ test that I'm putting down in the description, so make sure that you comment on the videos, let me know the score that you got if you're confident enough to share it, and you can tell me a little bit more about how reliable you think it is. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching this week's episode of GetPsyched. This week we've been looking at the psychology of IQ. We've been thinking a little bit more about the reliability and validity of IQ tests as I've ran through a couple of IQ tests for you. Thanks so much for watching this week's episode of GetPsyched guys, and hopefully catch you next week.